Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. Hope everybody had a wonderful day so far. Today is, of course, Rankings Tuesday. We get into our Week 9 NFL Power Rankings. We get into our Week 10 College Football Top 25. We're also going to talk a little bit of World Series. The Dodgers extend their lead to 3-0. For the 25th time in World Series history, we have the potential for a sweep. Very exciting here. We also take a look at the Monday Night Football game. But before we get into all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show here today talking a little bit about Monday Night Football. We had a game that, honestly, I did not think was going to be that close. The New York Giants failed to get a win on Monday Night Football, a game that was very winnable for both of these teams. This was very much the epitome of a Steelers game, right? You go against a team that clearly they're just better than, and you struggle to get anything going. That Giants defense continues to play really good football. They were held to maybe their worst game all season long, but regardless of that, they only gave up 19 points. Obviously, one of those touchdowns came off of a punt return, an iffy punt return call, one where at least I thought watching that game, there should have been a running into or roughing the punter penalty that would have had offsetting, making them do the punt again. Ends up being the difference in the game. Regardless of that, the Giants should not have been in that game. Daniel Jones played fine. He was able to hit a couple of deep shots to Darius Slayton, like we were talking about when we were previewing this game. If there's going to be a deep threat, it's going to be Darius Slayton. Tyrone Tracy had yet another massive game, this time not even as a expected starter. He came in there and proved what we've already known. He's better than Devin Singletary, the rookie converted wide receiver. What he's able to do for that team as far as in the short passing game, blocking, and more explosivity with the run. He is better than Devin Singletary. As far as it goes on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the ball here, they get a win. They improve to 6-2, and now we get to the part of their schedule after this bye week that everyone was saying this is going to be the brutal stretch. Everyone was looking at it at the beginning of the season or in the offseason. We started off with a game that people were not expecting to be that tough, but has become much tougher. They open up at the Commanders after their bye week. Then they have every single one of their divisional games. The Ravens, the Browns, who are playing better, the Bengals, the Browns again, then the Eagles, the Ravens again, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. There is not a single one of these games that I can comfortably tally as a win for these Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a Steelers team that, well, yes, they have been playing better. They've been getting more explosive plays down the field. Najee Harris has been playing by far his best football of his career. By far. We've had stretches of Najee Harris' career where he's getting into the end zone, but we haven't had stretches of his career where he's now 3 or 4 straight games looking like a 7+ yard per carry guy. He's never been this effective. With Russell Wilson under center, he has now, been able to exploit some of these holes that the play action game, the deep middle, the outer third, deep passes have opened up a little bit. It also is one of the more interesting things that happened in this game, getting a little bit back to the Giants defense here, is the fact that Deonte Banks was benched. Deonte Banks, just the second-year player for the New York Giants, a corner, gets benched a little bit after halftime. There was lots of questions of his effort. That was an interesting move. It didn't seem like he was playing that poorly. In fact, he had saved a touchdown on a very controversial call. George Pickens in the back of the end zone gets 1 foot down twice. Now, I'm sure it says something in the rule book about, hey, you need to get both feet down, but in my opinion, should have been a touchdown catch. I'm not the rule book. I think that will change. Maybe it's not something that you see happen too often, where a guy hops on 1 foot twice as opposed to getting both feet down. But I feel like that should have been a touchdown. Didn't matter. The Steelers were still able to get a win in this game, but there were plenty of plays that, you look at and you say this was not the best Steelers game. Obviously, getting back to Deonte Banks, he gets benched. I'm curious to see if he gets his job back. I don't think he played particularly bad in this one. I don't think he played particularly without effort. He was shutting down George Pickens, a guy who is one of the best contested ball catchers in the league. The Giants were killed by Calvin Austin in this one. He burned Drew Phillips on a deep route. Drew Phillips, who's played really good football this year as well. And, obviously the Calvin Austin punt return. This was just a good defensive game, kind of what you expect in a Giants-Steelers matchup. The Steelers need to pull out a couple miracle wins out of their hat if they want to continue to get this momentum that they have past this bye week. Because like we said, they have an awful stretch coming up, maybe one of the worst in all of football after this bye week. So they did a good job getting a good amount of wins in this first half of the season. It's what they needed to do. But we'll see what happens down the stretch here. Kind of knew what we got out of both of these teams, really, at the end of the day. But let me know what you thought of this game. Obviously, it came down to the wire. It was a good game by both of by the Giants, especially. I thought there were a couple of mistakes down the stretch, but I thought they played one of their better football games. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we start our rankings Tuesday. The NFL Power Rankings coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced, all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the Monday Night Football game that saw the Steelers take care of the Giants at home, 26-18. In this segment, we start off our NFL Power Rankings. It is Rankings Tuesday, of course, so we're going to start off, as always, with ranks 32-17. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, into the NFL power rankings for week 9. Starting off at number 32, it is the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers at the bottom for the second week in a row. The Carolina Panthers continue to show that they have something, but it doesn't amount to much. That defense is one of, if not the worst in all of football. They turned back to Bryce Young after Andy Dalton gets into a car accident and had been struggling the last couple of weeks. He comes out and puts up a solid performance against a good Broncos defense, putting up 14 points, even if 7 of those came in garbage time. It was a very good game from Bryce Young, one of the best that we've seen all season from him. If he can continue to play like that coming up in Germany this week against the Giants, that is going to be a big game to see what his future looks like with the Panthers, with another team. We will see as the trade deadline quickly approaches. The Panthers are number 32. At 31, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders just continue to look horrible in just about everything that you could possibly expect them to look horrible in. The Raiders, once again, don't have much offense going. They have a superstar at tight end. They cannot get them into the end zone. As good as the Raiders want to be, and I know it was against the Chiefs, still, they can't get the run game going. They're able to put up 20 points, and Gardner Minshew has his moments. He always has his moments, but it's not enough. This is a Raiders team that has holes just about everywhere. They don't really have a run game. When Alexander Mattison is your lead back, you have an issue. They need to go out, and they probably should be selling at the deadline. We will see, though. Raiders are 31. At number 30, it's the Tennessee Titans. They get maybe their best offensive game all season long. For the first quarter, at least, they were keeping pace with the super high-powered Detroit Lions. A Detroit Lions defense that, if you're able to keep pace with their offense, are beatable. They have a secondary that you can exploit, and we saw Calvin Ridley, especially in that first quarter, go for over 100 yards and almost 10 catches. That is a ridiculous stat line in the first quarter, and of course, they just can't capitalize on it after that. The Tennessee Titans are a defense that usually play better than that. It doesn't matter. This is a Titans team that has lots of holes. They've already started selling. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins. They traded away Ernest Jones. This is a team that is going to keep on going with its fire sale, and I think they're going to draft a quarterback this year. I think they've decided that Will Levis is not the answer. I know he didn't start this game, but I think they've decided he's not the answer. The Titans down 3 spots to number 30. The New England Patriots are up 2 spots, even after losing young rookie quarterback Drake May to a concussion. Hopefully he comes back, if not this week, then soon. They beat the Jets. This was a much better team. We've seen this matchup before, and we saw it with Jacoby Brissett before. We saw this matchup when the Jets weren't as high-powered on offense, when they didn't have Devontae Adams, when they didn't have Hassan Reddick, and yet the Jets lose this time. The Patriots learn from whatever mistakes they made in Week 3 against the Jets, and they make the change. The Jets, on the other hand, did not make the change, and maybe this is just the way that this division is going. Both of these teams have 2 wins right now. The Patriots, in my opinion, seem like they're in a better spot than the Jets are, which is crazy to say as a team that I had as a Super Bowl contender heading into the season. But the Patriots at 29, I liked what I saw, even without Drake May out there. They're playing like a much more together team, the team that we saw in Week 1 that won against the Bengals. At 28, it's the New Orleans Saints. They're down 3 spots to get to here. They only put up 8 points, 6 of them on offense. Of course, 2 of those coming from a blocked punt, safety, weird special teams play that got them on the board first. They cannot move the ball on offense, point blank, period. They cannot move the ball. They played against a Chargers defense that is solid. Again, the Chargers defense is leading the league in as far as scoring defense goes right now, but a lot of that is based on who they have played. Aside from the Chiefs, they haven't really played anybody's offense that's super, out there, and they played the Chiefs when they didn't have any weapon to rely on, really. So this is a Saints team that needs a lot of work. We talked about it. They extended Alvin Kamara, which I disagree with. As good as Alvin Kamara can be, he is not going to be good enough to make this team a contender. So I don't really understand what keeping him around does for this team. They're very injured, though, so I'm going to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. They're still playing awful football. Maybe if Derek Carr can come back, they can play a little bit better, be a little bit more respectable. But as it stands right now, the New Orleans Saints just look like a dumpster fire of a football team. At 27, it's the New York Giants. We just talked about them. Their defense is really good. They have a really good pass rush. Outside of that, they got nothing. The offense has no juice. You can, as much as you want Tyrone Tracy to be that guy, he has a concussion. We see them kind of hyperfixate on one person in this offense. It was Malik Neighbors, right? Since he's come back from concussion, he has 8 catches since he's come back in 2 weeks. He had 39 targets. He was leading the league. He had 11 catches, 12 targets in back-to-back games. He was the offense. Then he gets hurt. They take a little bit of a step back. A little bit of a step back from him. They turn to the run game in Tyrone Tracy. He goes off. Now he gets hurt. This is a team that needs to be able to spread the ball. Daniel Jones is just not the answer at quarterback. This is a team whose season, it doesn't really matter. They're going to keep losing games. It's not a good team, but by God, keep that defensive line together for when you get a quarterback, because if you get some kind of offense going with this defense, it is a problem. So do everything you can to keep Dexter Lawrence happy, and maybe put him in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. At 26, it's the other New York team, the New York Jets. All the way down at number 26. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, right? The New York Jets, like I was saying earlier, had come into this season with Super Bowl expectations. They have made desperation moves in 3 straight weeks. They are out of moves now. The Jets have nothing left to do. Aaron Rodgers is just not cutting it. He is not playing that same level of football that you need Aaron Rodgers to play if he's going to be the whole team. The defense is not playing nearly as good. Everything about this team has taken a step back with just about every single move that they've made. I think this shows a lot of what Robert Saleh was doing. I think Robert Saleh will get another job because of how hard the Jets have fallen. They just lose to the Patriots, a team that they dismantled the first time they played, a team that could not move the ball against them the first time they played. This is a Jets team that just looks like it's on the steepest descent to the bottom of the league right now. At 25, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They put up a fight against one of the better teams in the league, in the Green Bay Packers. They nearly win this game. They drive all the way down to tie up the game. The defense, especially the secondary, still isn't good enough. Malik Willis comes in and leads a game-winning drive. You have a game-winning kick for the second week in a row for Brandon McManus since joining the Green Bay Packers. The Jacksonville Jaguars played a really good game against a really good team. I think this team has a lot of optimism around it. I'm not going to say it's a good team. Obviously, losing Christian Kirk does not help. To a broken collarbone, he's done for the season. But if this team feels like it still has something that's buzzing, something that it believes in a little bit, and that is really important when your team is as bad as the Jaguars have been this season. At 24, it's the Colts, and we'll go into a deeper dive on the Colts tomorrow when we get into what happened with Anthony Richardson, but I'll just say this right now. Flat out, it's unacceptable how bad he was playing, and I understand why they benched him. If you haven't heard, Anthony Richardson was benched today in favor of Joe Flacco. They're 4-4. They're fighting for a playoff spot. I understand this decision. It helps them win now, but I think it kind of hurts them a little bit in the future because you don't know unless they've already made their decision on Anthony Richardson, which I'd say if you think 10 games is a good enough sample size, that's fine. I would trot him out there for a little bit longer, but I understand you need to win football games. Joe Flacco is the quarterback of the Colts. I've been selling all my stock because I was real high on this team. With Joe Flacco, I think they have a chance to make the playoffs again, but still, not the way that we expected it to go. Lots of problems, specifically around Anthony Richardson here. We'll see if he gets another shot next season. At 23, it's the Dallas Cowboys, and I punished them not too much for their loss on Sunday Night Football to the 49ers. You can say all you want about this team, about how they're bad, and clearly they are. They're in the bottom half of this power ranking. They're at 23. They're in the 20s. This is not a position that you want to be in, an envied position for a good team, right? This is a team that it's looking up at 11 teams right now in their own conference. And yet, I think that was the best game the Dallas Cowboys have played since week 1. The Dallas Cowboys came out there on Sunday night, and especially in that fourth quarter, they got some really important stops against a Niners rushing team that's one of the best in the league. They got some really big plays by CeeDee Lamb, something that they hadn't had all season long. There was a lot to be excited about if you are a Cowboys fan from that loss. Still not a good spot to be in, but this was by far their best game of the season, even in a loss. At 22, it's those Cleveland Browns. How about the Browns? They are our biggest risers of the week, up 8 spots from 30 to 22. A big week for them. Jameis Winston comes in and provides an instant spark offensively. You can talk to me about how he almost threw 3 interceptions and almost cost them the game. The key word in anything that you just said there is almost, because he led a game-winning drive. He led the Browns to win. That is hope right there in Cleveland. Something they haven't felt all season long, and something that I think even in a really, really tough division, the middle of the AFC, that wild card race is still wide open. They can go and get that if they continue to play like this. Jameis Winston is going to make his fair share of mistakes. That's just how it goes with Jameis Winston. You got to live with those, and you're going to live with those big plays too. I'm excited to see what this Cleveland Browns team can do now that they have a little bit of life in them. A big win over a really good Ravens team. Cleveland Browns up 8 to 22. At 21, it's the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins also move up in a loss. I know it's not the most, obvious thing to do here, but Tua came back and he played good football. The offense looked competent for the first time since week 1. Really the first time all season. Even in week 1 and week 2 when Tua was there, the offense did not look very competent. They were making lots of mistakes. They were able to move the ball downfield in this game. They were able to get their weapons involved. They had at least one drive where they hit a deep shot down the field. This is what you needed. Get Tua involved. This is not a team that I expect to make a deep run this year in the playoffs like I had at the preseason, but this is a Miami Dolphins team that has some life finally. This is a Cardinals team that fights hard. It's what it does. It's what they did last year. It's what they continue to do this year with this coaching staff. The difference is this is a Cardinals team now with some talent, so they're going to be able to beat you because they play harder than you. The Dolphins just need to get that same Cardinals mentality. Hey, we're going to keep playing until the final whistle. We're not going to give up. If they get that in them, they could be a dangerous spoiler kind of team. Dolphins here to 21. At 20, it's the Cincinnati Bengals. Another rough week, a big loss to the Eagles in this one that they kind of needed pretty badly. They're falling pretty far behind in the division race. Again, with how muddled the AFC is as far as the wild card spots, they're not out of it yet. And with how dangerous that offense is, they can still find a way in. The defense has a lot of questions to answer. They almost made a couple of big stops against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles there. They were able to slow down that Eagles offense, if just a little bit, but that's a tough unit to slow down. The Bengals need to play better as a whole, but I was happy with I wasn't angry with what I saw out of this Bengals team. They're only down 2. At 19, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. They continue to beat up on the opponents they're supposed to beat up on. They beat the bad teams, and that is how, with the Chargers, you start looking at a team with a respectable with a respectable record. They come off of a tough loss against the Cardinals the other week. They go out there and they just dismantle the Saints. That's what you need them to do. A big bounce-back game from Justin Herbert, especially. We saw J.K. Dobbins get into the end zone in this one. This was just a well-played game on all units by the Chargers, only giving up 1 touchdown defensively. It's a solid defense. Like I said, they still haven't really played too many really good opponents. You look at it, they played the Raiders, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Cardinals, and the Saints. There's not too many of those teams that you point at and you say, wow, that's a potent offense, right? They were able, and the ones that you would say, hey, they have an okay offense, they lost to. So this is a team that has a lot of work to do, but they are going to beat up on the bad teams, which is why they're in the teens right now. At 18, it's those Arizona Cardinals, another nail-biter for this team. They've now won 2 straight on walk-off field goals. Congratulations to the Arizona Cardinals. They play a hard-fought game, come all the way back in this one. This was a fun game in Miami. Kyler Murray's playing really good football. James Conner's playing very good football. They finally got maybe the best game out of, or the most consistent game out of Marvin Harrison Jr. against a not great secondary, but still, he was playing for all 4 quarters. I feel like he took some of the criticism that he got from that Monday Night Football game, and he played a lot better. He's still not playing up to the level that I and a lot of other people thought he would, but still a big game for Marvin Harrison Jr. against a Miami Dolphins defense that has shut down a lot of top wide receivers in the past. And at number 17, it's the Seattle Seahawks. We talked about them being on fraud watch. They continue to stay on fraud watch. What they were just subjected to by the Buffalo Bills was an absolute whooping. They got destroyed in this game. Every facet of it. The offensive line snapped the ball over Geno's head, stepped on Geno's foot on a crucial 4th down. They were unable to convert in the red zone very often. This is a team with a lot of issues going on, but they have a very talented team. They're another one of those teams that, like I've been saying it this whole time, they're kind of like the NFL's litmus test. If you beat the Seahawks, you're probably a good team. If you lose to the Seahawks, you're probably a bad team. Now, that test doesn't always work. You know, the Giants beat them, but still, this is a Seattle Seahawks team that I think should hover around 16 for the rest of the year, barring anything crazy that happens. We're going to take a quick break here, though. When we come back, we finish up our NFL power rankings, 16-1. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings. In this segment, we finish up our Power Rankings 16-1, but before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we finish up our NFL Power Rankings. Number 16-1, where we left off. The Seattle Seahawks, our biggest fallers of the week, at number 17. Right ahead of them at number 16 is the winners of the Monday Night Football game. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers 2-0 under Russell Wilson. Their offense was not as explosive as you want it to be as it was against the Jets, but we saw a lot of big plays. A couple touchdowns to George Pickens get called back due to penalties or weird technicalities with players being in bounds. It was a good game by the Steelers. It wasn't a great game, and I feel like we didn't learn much. As much as it seems weird to say it was a must-win game for this team at 5-2, now 6-2, it was a must-win game for the Steelers. They took care of business. As we were talking about in segment 1, this was a game that, with the schedule coming up, the absolute brutality of that schedule, coming off the bye at the Commanders, the Ravens, everybody else in that division, the Chiefs later on, there is not an easy game. Maybe you can take a couple in the division, but the way that the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens are playing on any given day, the Steelers could lose or beat any of them. So it's a very interesting way to look at the rest of this Steelers season, but they got a game that they had to get. They head into the bye at 6-2, a good spot to be as they get into a very tough stretch they get into the very tough schedule down the stretch of the season. The Steelers here stay put at number 16. At 15, it's those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We knew it was going to hurt to lose all of their weapons, but Cade Otton played his best football of his career on 20 targets-ish. He gets into the end zone twice on National Tight End Day. A big day for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, proving that they can still run a competent offense even without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The problem comes more with this defense. They're not out of it in the division, but losing twice to the Falcons hurts. It doesn't just hurt, it stings. That is not the way that you are going to make a playoff spot. You need to win this division if you're trying to do anything out of the NFC South. The Bucs needed that game in the worst possible way, and unfortunately, they're just too injured to truly compete right now. They have a good team. They've got a lot of good pieces, but they need to run it back next year and be absolutely sure of what they have. The Buccaneers are at 15. At 14 is the Denver Broncos, and they just keep on climbing. I'm very impressed with this team, and more importantly, I'm very impressed with Bo Nix. I, very vocally, have been a Bo Nix hater, and that's not going to stop. I'm not a big fan of Bo Nix, but what he's been able to do consistently on the football field has very much impressed me. His ability to get out of the pocket, escape pressure, once again, I'm very impressed by it. He had by far his best game of the season, granted, against the Carolina Panthers. But he showed me a lot in this game. He was able to hit hole shots. He was able to hit throws with anticipation down the field, hit tight ends on seam routes when they were open. This was a very, very impressive performance by Bo Nix and the Broncos. I'm not giving him too much credit because, again, it was against the Panthers, but they keep on winning games that they need to win, and they will find themselves in a playoff spot. Broncos are up 3-14. The Atlanta Falcons stay put at number 13. I know they got a big win against a division rival in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a game that I expected a lot more out of them. They're going up against a defense that had been giving up a lot of points back-to-back weeks, almost 50 points in back-to-back weeks each time, right? This is a team in the Atlanta Falcons who has a potent offense. This is also a team whose defense has been very disappointing, especially in the secondary. The communications with the safeties and the corners when they're playing zone defense just have not been there. The pass rush continues to be an issue for the Atlanta Falcons, but they escape with a big win. They continue to play like this as long as they continue to get the wins that they need to get. The Falcons will be a threat when they make the playoffs. Falcons are here at 13. At 12, it's the Los Angeles Rams. They're back to the highest that they have been all season. They reached this point after a Week 1 loss against the Detroit Lions. And they're back here because guess what? They're healthy. They now have both of their wide receivers back. Puka Nacua goes for over 100 yards. Cooper Kupp catches a touchdown. Kyron Williams continues to have a nose for the end zone. Matthew Stafford, 4 touchdowns, 1 really bad interception, but it didn't matter against a really good Viking squad, one that was going to be a big threat for this team. They got over the hump. They got a big win to stay in the division race with the Niners, with the Cardinals, with the Seahawks. This was a must-win game for them. Again, there's a lot of those that's happening in these mid-season matchups, but that's what this was. They got on the board, and this is a Rams team that, since they were able to keep pace while they were hurt, is a dangerous team now. Don't sleep on them. They're one of the better offenses in the league, and the way that that defense is playing with a lot of those young players, do not sleep on the Rams. They're my number 12 team right now. At 11, it's the Bears. They fall out of the top 10. This was a bad Bears game. This was a Bears game that harkens back to the early season Bears when the offense couldn't get anything done. And it's against a Commanders defense that, despite what the numbers might tell you, are not very good. This is a Commanders defense that the Giants were able to move up and down on. This is a Commanders defense that has given up 1,000,000 points and 1,000,000 yards in just about every single game. This is a not great unit over there. And yet the Bears were unable to move the ball. Now, I like a lot of the things that unit has, but still, the Chicago Bears were unable to do anything. For the first time since he really got in the league, this was a step back for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams took a step back. Now, he looked really good in that fourth quarter, but outside of that fourth quarter, everything should get scrapped for the Bears, including that final play. That was just embarrassing. The Bears fall out of the top 10. They are down 2 spots to 11. Hitting our top 10 here, starting off with the San Francisco 49ers. A big win for them over the Dallas Cowboys. They looked shaky though. They couldn't really get the run game going with Jordan Mason. He gets hurt again. Garendo comes in, plays a solid game. Brock Purdy gets some scramble yards, especially in the third quarter. They looked phenomenal, but they let the Cowboys come back on them in that fourth quarter. You can't do that. This is a 49ers team that was able to escape with a win. There's a lot of good, but they're a little bit too inconsistent for me to truly put them back into that top 5, top 7 contender range that we have formed a little bit over the last couple of weeks. They climb their way back into the top 10, though. They sit right on the fringe of it at number 10. At number 9, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. They've won 3 straight games now, and you can say it was against the Browns, the Giants, and the Bengals, but still, they've won 3 straight games. They're getting healthy again. The defense continues to be playing a lot better, especially on the defensive line over there, getting a lot of pressure, just like they did last week against the Giants. But still, a lot of good, a lot you like out of this Philadelphia Eagles unit. Saquon, over 100 yards yet again. Jalen Hurts did not turn the ball over again. That's the biggest thing. That's what I criticized him a lot for early in the season. As they continue to play clean football, this Eagles team is going to continue to be more and more dangerous. They're here at number 9. At number 8, it's those Washington Commanders. They played a really good game of football, Jaden Daniels especially. I know you can really harken it back. You can really look at that last play, that Hail Mary. That was something special, something magical, right? But he came in there with a painful rib injury, one that held him out of practice for 3 out of 4 days this week. That is not something that usually lends yourself to playing like that, and he didn't have his greatest game. He struggled to move the ball, especially in the red zone. The Commanders were not very effective. They didn't get the ball into the end zone at all until that final play of the game, and they could not get the ball in. They've had that issue before against the Giants in week 2. They were unable to get the ball into the end zone, but move the ball great between the 20s. They need to fix that a little bit. But what Jaden Daniels showed me, what he was able to do with the painful rib injury, shows a lot about this Commanders team. And then they just called on some magic to win at the end of it. So the Commanders are just down 1 spot to number 8. At number 7, it's the Minnesota Vikings. They take a second straight loss to 2 really good teams, I think, though. Obviously to the Detroit Lions, who are a wrecking ball right now, although we'll see what happens later on in this season. And the Rams, who I just finished talking about, are a sleeper, really good team. just ignoring their record, the way that they play when that team is healthy, they can compete with just about anybody. It's a couple of good losses for this Vikings team, but it's a little concerning. I want to see they need to have a big bounce back game this week when they take on the Colts on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be an interesting one. Colts with Joe Flacco starting. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but that is a huge game for both of those teams. The Bills up a couple of spots to number 6, up 2 spots here. They've played really good football. Josh Allen threw his first interception in the rain here, but still, he played some awesome football. Keon Coleman coming into his own. Moss is Tariq Woolen over there in the end zone. The two-headed running game with James Cook and Ray Davis, and throwing a little bit of Josh Allen is there in there as well as your full power back kind of guy. That offense is clicking right now, and the defense is coming back to the way it was playing early on in the season. This is a dangerous, dangerous Bills team, and they've got a pretty good chokehold on their division. At 5, it's the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe you want me to drop them more. They only dropped 3 spots after losing to the Cleveland Browns, and I can understand you if you think they should fall further, but you have to look at the full body of work. You have to look at everything. This isn't just how do they do in Week 9 ranking. You have to look at the full body of work. The Ravens have been a buzzsaw all season long, and it was a division matchup on the road. Those are never easy. This was a division matchup on the road with a new starting quarterback. Now, should the Ravens have won this game? Absolutely yes. Even with the way they played, they should have won this game. Kyle Hamilton drops 2 interceptions. There's another interception dropped later on in this game. This is just a couple blunders that they made. Other than that, they escape with a win. I don't think this is nearly as embarrassing as people are making it out to be. It's a solid Browns team, especially with Jameis Winston in there at quarterback. They have their issues, the Baltimore Ravens do. But I think people are blowing this loss out of proportion. They're only down 3 spots for my liking to number 5. At number 4, the Houston Texans. They lose Stephon Diggs. That is a big loss for them. They're down their top 2 receivers. Nico Collins should come back next week, not this week on Thursday, but right now they're running with Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, and, of course, Dalton Schultz at tight end. But it doesn't really matter because this is a team that is built on the run. This is a dangerous game that they are playing right now. Now, I know, again, everything I just said about the Ravens, except the Texans were able to win this one, is true about the Texans, right? The Texans were able to get a win instead, but they played a division team on the road. That's a tough matchup. It doesn't matter. The Texans, I really like this team. CJ Stroud not playing his best football right now, but still, this is a team that continues to win under the run game, which is something that we're seeing a lot more this year with especially these top teams. They've got really good running games, and that is what's propelling them to the top of the league. The Texans up to number 4. At number 3, it's the Green Bay Packers. And usually, as we saw in weeks 1, weeks 2, I would panic when Will Levis comes in. When Malik Willis comes in to the game to spell Jordan Love. Jordan Love goes down for the second time this season, but Malik Willis, undefeated quarterback. He once again leads this Green Bay Packers team really effectively. That's yet another game-winning drive for him in games that he's played. Outside of just a Hail Mary attempt, they are 3-0. This is a Packers team whose defense is playing really good. Like I was talking about, these teams at the top, it's the run game that have been powering it. Josh Jacobs playing really good football right now. The Green Bay Packers are at number 3, and they are a very dangerous team. At number 2, it's the Detroit Lions. We have this discussion every week. The number 2 team, though, seems to have a little bit of a curse put on it, from what I can tell. We have had just one repeat of the number 2 team ever this whole season. We started with the Ravens at number 2. Then they lost to the Chiefs. Then we went to the Niners at number 2 in week 2. Then they lost. Then the Texans in week 3. They lost. The Bills in week 4. They lost. The Lions in week 5. Then they lost. Vikings held the crown for 2 weeks in weeks 6 and 7, and then they lost. Then it went back to the Ravens, and they lost. And now it's back to the Lions. So that number 2 spot has been a little bit of a curse spot right now, but still, The Lions are playing better football than just about anybody in the league right now. That offense is on a whole nother level. And it's not just the offense, it's special teams. What they were able to do on special teams, forgive me for sounding redundant, is special. What they were able to do against the Texans. Over 200 yards of total offense from the special teams, a touchdown. That was an awesome game from the Detroit Lions, a full, complete game from the Lions team. They shut them down defensively, the Titans, in the second half. And Jared Goff didn't even have to throw for 100 yards to win that game. It was very effective, very efficient Lions win. Their yards they scored more points than they ran offensive plays. And that's not something that you see very often in the NFL. So congratulations to the Lions. They are at number 2, which of course leads to our number 1 team, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs once again hold the crown as they have all season long. They get another win. And you can come at me all you want. Oh, the Lions should be at number 1. Oh, they shouldn't have been at number 1 this whole time. They haven't lost yet. And they don't show any signs of slowing down yet. They just improving. They got another linebacker to fix their linebacking core depth after some injuries happened in this game. They could bring in D-Hop. He hasn't really seen the field yet, but when he does, it's going to be dangerous. Patrick Mahomes is only starting to play better football right now. He's had a really down season. They're a dangerous team, and they continue to stay number 1 until someone's able to knock them off the throne. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these power rankings, any issues you had with anybody on my list. Let me know in the comments. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the world of college football. A brand new, hot off the press, NCAA Top 25 coming your way, as well as a Group of 5 Top 5 that has the biggest changes yet. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the NFL power rankings for this week. Our number 1 team yet again, I'll let you guess, it was the Kansas City Chiefs. They've held the crown all year long. No one has knocked them down yet. In this segment, we turn our attention to college football. A brand new Jeremy Lapidus Top 25 is out as of today, and we're going to go over all of it. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message, should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish up our Ranking Tuesday today, getting into the NCAA College Football Top 25 for Week 10. Starting, of course, as always, with our Group of 5 Top 5. We have some of our biggest changes yet since the very beginning, the very induction of the Group of 5 Top 5. At the bottom, number 5 is UNLV. They're a team that drops 3 spots in this ranking. They were at number 2. They take a close loss to Boise State in their biggest game of the season. They're all but eliminated from the college football playoff, but I still think they are one of the best teams in the group of 5. Their only losses so far have come against Boise State and a Syracuse team that I still am very high on. I think it's a very good Syracuse team. They have some issues defensively, but it's a good UNLV team still. They deserve a little bit of respect. A new entrant on to the group of 5 top 5 is Tulane at number 4. Tulane has been playing really good football. We talk about UNLV with 2 losses coming against really good teams. You talk about 2 quality losses. You talk about Tulane. One to a top 25 ranked team in Kansas State, very similarly to UNLV, and the other one to Oklahoma, a kind of disgraced former top 25 team. Both of those losses are very similar, in my opinion, between these 2 teams, but Tulane has been playing better football down the stretch here. Their losses are older. I think Tulane gets the jump on UNLV here at number 4. At number 3, it's Washington State. We're getting into the territory of actual ranked teams now. Washington State gets on the AP top 25 for the first time this season. They have a really good resume right now. Their only loss is to Boise State, a theme you'll see on this list so far. They're a very good team, and I think they're second, in my opinion, to that group of 5 slot behind the team that beat them in Boise State. Number 2 goes to Army, the last service academy to stay undefeated after Navy took a brutal loss at the hands of Notre Dame this week. A big game for Navy. Just weren't able to answer the test. The Black Knights play Notre Dame later, so we'll really see, even before the Army-Navy game, how they kind of stack up together against a quality common opponent. For now, Army moves up to number 2. And that leaves number 1, Boise State. Boise State, the number 1 group of 5 team for basically the entire season. Ashton Genty, what more can I say about this team? It's a very good football team. And again, all three of these top 3 teams are ranked in the AP Power Ranking. We'll see if all of them, maybe even all 5, are ranked in my ranking. Starting at number 25 here, it's Tulane. So maybe that gives the game away a little bit. Only 4 of them are ranked if you go by that group of 5 top 5. Tulane is our number 25 team. I almost put them here at 26. After Vanderbilt had a tough loss to Texas, they were our number 25 team last week. Vanderbilt stays in that honorable mentions list with teams like UNLV, South Carolina, Louisville, and, of course, Vanderbilt. But Tulane beats out those 4 teams to get that number 25 slot. Like I was talking about in the top 5, in the group of 5 top 5, they've played really solid football. That offense is very explosive. I have some concerns about that defense, but with losses to K-State and Oklahoma being the only blemishes on their record, that is a very dangerous team, and a team that has a really good chance of making the college football playoff if the chips fall their way. At 24, Illinois finds their way back onto our list. It's been a while, and I've been disrespecting them a little bit. I know I put them back on here after a loss to Oregon, but they're just better than everybody else that's not on the list right now. But point blank, they're a very good football team. I've been disrespecting them a bit. I still don't totally believe in this team. I think they're not really a true contender, but this has been a very chaotic top 25 all season long, and they've been hanging around. Credit to them. They find a way to slip back into my rankings at number 24. At 23, it's Washington State. I just did a whole glowing review about Washington State. They're very good. Their only loss is to Boise State this season, a very highly ranked Boise State team. Still, they're going to have an uphill battle because they're in the Pac-2, not a super highly respected conference, basically a Mountain West school right now. It's going to be an interesting road to the playoffs if they get in, but they're a team that should be considered at the very least. At 22, it's Colorado, another one of those teams making their debut ranking on our list here. The Colorado Buffaloes have been playing awesome football. Travis Hunter just really took a big step in the Heisman race this week, having over 130 yards and playing almost every single snap on defense. This is a really, really great Colorado Buffalo squad. The defense especially has been what has taken that big step up. That's what we've been waiting on all season long. All of last season, what really kind of made them spiral out of control is they didn't have it in the trenches. They didn't have it defensively. Now they do, and they are a dangerous team in the Big 12. They could make some noise over there. At 21, it's Army. They're a team that just continues to dominate week in, week out. No matter what you say, Army's going to come in and put up 50 points on your head. That's kind of what it's been. They really haven't played anyone super of note yet, but they're going to get a big test against Notre Dame coming soon. And when they do, we're going to see how real of a team this Army, these Black Knights are. At 20, it is Ole Miss. Another one of those teams that I want to believe in, but they have some glaring flaws. Like I said, it's not like there's a clear top 25 this year. Ole Miss is a team that so many times I've wanted to drop out of the rankings. They've played not great football in the past, but they've only lost to some really quality teams. So Ole Miss is a team that, again, as long as they're able to go against that little bit of adversity that they face in the trenches, as long as they're able to get past that, they can play with anybody. A big win against Oklahoma this week. They fall a little bit, but they stay in the top 20. At 19, it's Pitt. I was very impressed by Pitt this week. Pitt moves up 3 spots in this ranking. They put the beat down on Syracuse, and they didn't even need their offense to do it. A very high-powered offense in that, but they got 3 pick sixes. The defense was the most impressive part of that to me. It was a part of the equation that I wasn't fully aware of, honestly. This was a Pitt defense that I was sleeping on. I'm very impressed by this Pitt team. They are quietly undefeated. They could make some noise. They have their biggest game of the season coming up this week against number 18, SMU. Whoever wins that game basically controls their own path to the ACC title game. Now, it's not just a 100% control your path there. You need a couple of things to go the right way between Clemson and Miami. But still, they have the opportunity to really help cement a case for them to make the college football playoff between Pitt or SMU, whoever wins that game this week, a massive game this weekend. At 17, it's Alabama. The Crimson Tide absolutely dominate Missouri. Missouri, a team that was just hanging on to their ranking, they are long gone now. Not even a thought in my mind. Alabama puts 34 up on them, doesn't allow a single point. But it's not a great Missouri team, just to be completely frank with you. When they play against great teams, they get blown out. When they play against bad teams, they win, but not very decisively. This is not the Missouri team that we thought we were going to get coming out of the preseason. Alabama shows them what a real team looks like, honestly. I'm still not super high on the Crimson Tide. They're a little bit up and down this season, but still a big win for the Tide there at number 17. At 16, it's the Boise State Broncos. A down game for Ashton Jeanty. Only 130 yards and a touchdown. What is he doing? Coming down to earth. That guy must suck, right? No, he's awesome. They get a huge win over UNLV, all but cementing a spot as long as they win out. They control their own destiny here at this point to the college football playoff. Their sole loss, the best loss you can have in the country, to number 1 Oregon right now. And it wasn't a blowout. It was a close loss. This is a really good Boise State team. They are a dangerous one. If they can make the playoffs, I think there's a chance maybe that they could upset somebody. We'll see, though. At 15, it's K-State. The Wildcats here just continue to impress me every single week. They get by in a tight game against a rival in Kansas. Again, rivalry games always make the juices go a little more. So even if you think that team isn't really all the way there, they're there. This is a really good Kansas State team. I've been sleeping on them a bit, but they might be the best team in the pack, in the Big 12, right? You can talk about some of these teams that are higher ranked than them, but I think K-State on a field today, I think it's about a 50-50 shot with just about any of them. At 14, it's Tennessee, and maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on this Tennessee team, but I haven't seen enough out of them. They beat Alabama, which isn't really, a kind of win that's aging too well, to be completely honest with you. Outside of that, a loss to Arkansas doesn't look that good right now. I'm just not super sold on this Tennessee Volunteers offense, especially. The defense is playing great, but the offense I'm not especially sold on. The Volunteers have a lot of work to do. They're not out of it yet, though, so we will see. At 13, it's the LSU Tigers, a tough loss for the top of the ACC between them and A&M last week. They end up losing. I still really like this LSU team. I think they're a team that, with these two losses that they have, or with these losses that they have, they're not out of a playoff race, especially with how crowded the SEC is at the top. If they can find a way to get into the SEC title game, I think they find their way to the playoffs. They're my 13 team. At 12, it's BYU, one of these teams that has beaten K-State earlier this season. They find their way into the top 12 for the first time this season. They just continue to climb. They're a team that I have been very hesitant to believe in, but they continue to show me week in and week out they're a team that, even if they face adversity, they will find a way to come through and win. The BYU Cougars up to number 12. At 11, it's Texas A&M, another one of those teams that I was slow to come around on. The Texas A&M Aggies, after a loss to Notre Dame in week 1, have become a completely different team. With Connor Wegman in there at quarterback, this offense just goes. I really like this A&M team. They're the top of the SEC for a reason. They control their destiny to the playoff at this point. At number 10, it's Notre Dame. A big win against the midshipmen of Navy this week. Absolutely dominant performance offensively, defensively. If that one blemish, that NIU loss wasn't there, we're talking about a top 5, top 3 team right now. It's a tough look for the Irish. They also, again, as an independent, they cannot lose out. They need a couple of things to fall the right way. With everything being as chaotic as it is right now, they're getting a little bit lucky. They stay in the top 10 here. It's not really any fault of their own. They've played really good football down the stretch. At number 9, it's Iowa State, the highest ranked Big 12 team that I have on here. Iowa State, again, another quietly undefeated team, just like BYU, just like Pitt. This is a team that, a lot like BYU, just continues to win football games, finds a way to win even through adversity. I love their defense. Their offense is coming around. There's a little bit to work on here, but Iowa State comfortably in the top 10 for me. At number 8, it's Indiana, and they have been a very loud undefeated team, and they should be loud. They should be excited with what this team has done. They get game day to come to town for the first time ever. They get a big win. They have yet to trail a single time, a single second of this season, and that is incredible. That is a ridiculous stat right there. They're having the best season of the program's history right now, and if everything goes their way, even with a loss to Ohio State, they should make the college football playoff at 11-1 right now. At 7, it's Penn State. They get a tough win at a place that I thought they were going to lose at. I still have my concerns with them. They continue to start slow just about every single week. And when you get into a high-powered team like Ohio State this week, when you get into maybe a Big Ten championship against an Indiana, when you get into a playoff spot against an Oregon, against a Texas, against a Miami, you cannot start slow and expect to win the game. I have my issues with Penn State. I understand having them in your top 3. I do, because they're winning these games. They're coming back. But it always concerns me when a team consistently needs to have these comebacks. Because of that, I have them at number 7. At number 6 is Clemson. This is a team that, outside of one of the best losses in the country, is doing really good. They lose to Georgia week 1 in embarrassing fashion. After that, it's just silence. They put their head down, they do their job, and they have been continuously in my top 6 for just about every single week of this season. They have taken care of business every single week, and they've done it convincingly. This is a Clemson Tigers team that quietly might be the best team in the ACC, regardless of what people think of Miami and what I think of Miami. This is a really good Tigers team. Do not sleep on them. At number 5, it's Ohio State. They drop a couple spots in a win. It's a very concerning look, much like it is for Penn State, they have been not very good against good opponents. The offensive line, huge question marks. They have to show something against a good Penn State defense this week. This is a game that could ruin one of these two squads, at least in my opinion, if either of them look awful. This is a big game for both of them, and one that I'm not certain Ohio State is going to win, even though they've been dominant over the past as long as I can remember. Texas to number 4 here. They escape with a win against Vandy. The 3-point game, it makes it look closer than it was. They still didn't play their best football. Diego Pavia and that Vandy team have a way to make that game look close no matter what. A garbage time touchdown at the end really does it for you. But still, this is a Texas team that has its issues, just like Ohio State. But still, I am a big fan of this Texas team. I think that depth is going to help them a lot more. Ohio State's a little thin. Texas is not. They're still at number 4 for me. At number 3, it's Miami. The Hurricanes finally just dominate again. The first game that they've just truly dominated against Florida State here since the Virginia Tech game. They've had a bunch of heart-wrenchers, a bunch of close ones. They need to get to this more. This is a good Miami team. They have a chance to run the table. At 2, it's Georgia. A big win. They have a bye after a big win at Texas. Not much to say about this team, except if they play like that, like they did against Texas every single week, they should be potentially that number 1 team. But of course they're not, because the number 1 team in the nation, as everybody knows, is the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks continue to dominate. They, I think, in my opinion at least, have separated themselves from the rest of the country. They started off slow. There's no doubt in my mind about that. They fell out down to like 10 in a lot of people's rankings, but they have continued to crawl up every single week. Regardless of how they've played at the beginning of the season, they are playing the best football in the country right now, and I think that is undeniable. The Oregon Ducks are my number 1 team. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here, finish off the show with some World Series talk. When we come back, we'll talk all about Aaron Judge and the Yankees falling down to a 3-0 hole. Can they get out of it? So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over our NCAA Top 25 and the Group of 5 Top 5 on this beautiful Rankings Tuesday. In this segment, we finish off our show with some World Series talk. It's down to the wire tonight. A potential elimination game between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. But before we break that down and how we got here, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some World Series talk. The World Series has reached a head. We are at the elimination game already. A series that was billed to be one of the best in a very long time has come up with a absolutely dominant LA start. The Dodgers, of course, we broke down games 1 and 2 yesterday. Freddie Freeman continues to bomb. In game 3, he started off that game with a bang, a 2-run home run in the first inning to open up the scoring, and they never looked back. It wasn't one of those games where they dominated, put up 70 runs, but they were able to do it with pitching like they've done all season, all series long. You had an absolute dominant performance from Walker Buehler, holding the Yankees hitless for half of his start into the 4th inning until Giancarlo Stanton was able to break up that no-hit bid, rocketing a double to the left field wall. And when he hits the ball, he hits it hard. He has been playing amazing. Aaron Judge continues to struggle. We talked about it yesterday. If the Yankees want to win a game, they need him to have at least 2 hits. He went hitless again. He was able to get on base with a walk, but he struck out yet again. He has 8 strikeouts in 12 plate appearances. He's hitting 150 in this postseason. It is abysmal how bad he has been, and it is killing the Yankees. Tonight, in an elimination game, at home, in the Bronx, the Yankees send out Luis Gil, who hasn't been great in the postseason in his last couple of starts. But he's a guy that has had some really good moments for this Yankees team earlier on this season. Luis Gil is a guy that at the beginning of the season was in Cy Young conversations. That's how good he was pitching. Then he kind of fell off a little bit. The Dodgers look like are throwing a bullpen game from my estimations. Ben Kasparis is out there. He's been fine. He's not a guy that I expect to go deep into this one. If you're the Dodgers, this is going to be one where the Dodgers need a big game from Gil at least. You talk about how bad you talk about how deep, this bullpen has had to go in a game yesterday, one where you were really counting on Schmidt to go deep. You had to use an arm in the 3rd inning. You used almost 7 arms in this game. 8 arms were used in this game for the Yankees. That's not a good bullpen usage kind of situation. You need a huge game out of Gil. You need him to go at least 5, hopefully 6 innings so you can get some rest for these guys. It's the World Series. It's not looking good for the Yankees right now. Down 3-0 historically. There have only been 24 before this year. There's only been 24 times the World Series has gotten to 3-0. None of those series have made it past Game 5. Only 3 of them have even made it to Game 5. The last sweep was in 2012 when the Giants swept the Tigers in that series. This is a massive moment for the Yankees. It's at home. The Dodgers are throwing a bullpen game. It looks like this is the time for the Yankees to strike. That's what it looks like, right? But the way that those bats have been going, and I'll say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You need those big 3 to show up. The way that the big 3 for the Dodgers are showing up. Mookie Betts playing really good baseball, even if he's not hitting that well, which he has. He's been hitting pretty solidly right now, making great plays out in defense over in right field. Shohei Ohtani playing through a dislocated shoulder, basically. Didn't look his best, but was able to draw a walk, got on base for that 2-run Freddie Freeman home run. He is still being very effective. They, no matter what, are being effective. And Freddie Freeman just crushing the baseball right now. Kike Hernandez being Kike Hernandez in the playoffs. They are just dominating That Dodger lineup, that Dodger big three is dominating that Yankee big three, and that has been the difference in this series. You can talk about pitching. I think both of these squads have had really, really good pitching, uncharacteristically good pitching for both of these squads, honestly, over these first 3 games of the series. And as much as I don't want to see it happen, I think because of that, the Dodgers are gonna finish up the sweep today. But if there's going to be a game where it's gonna happen, if there's going to be a game plan where it won't happen, it's going to be a Luis Gil dominant performance. 5, 6, potentially 7 innings out of him, and a big game from Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton. At least Aaron Judge needs to have a big game in this one. We will see. I think this is about it. I definitely don't think this series heads back to LA when the Dodgers and the Yankees, if it gets to game 5, you get back to those game 1 starters in this one. And at that point, I think that's about it. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the World Series. I think the Dodgers close it out tonight. We'll see, though. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode, our Rankings Tuesday of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back tomorrow talking about all of the trades, all of the massive news, the benchings coming out of the NFL. And of course, Wednesday, we'll do some NBA power rankings as well. So make sure you come back tomorrow for that. I will see you then. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't